Hello, my name is Krasia Tasio. I'm sidereal astrologer, and I will talk about the talismans, why the astrological talismans work. My focus is on the ancient Babylonian astrology. So we will talk about this in the previous video. When I spoke about the origins of astrology, I was making attempts to prove the very ancient origins of magic, which are related, of course, to astrology. It is not easy to prove why the talismans, the astrological talismans, work, and it is difficult to understand how this happens because this is a connection hidden from our senses, from our sight. So, in general, magic is a word that correlates to everything what is really hidden from our senses. Even though magic, the etymology of the word magic comes from magi, comes from wise men. Now, what is the astrological talisman? This is a magical image uh, which actually receives the influences of spirits, planetary, stellar spirits from very high hierarchy. Actually, the astrological magi has the responsibility to attract the celestial spirits. What is talisman actually? It comes from the Greek word telesma, which would mean secret, consecrated. And there is a difference between talismans and amulet, as amuletum has more of um, function, protective function, uh, or as it would be said in ancient text, apotropaic function. Of course, both, even though different in their nature, originate from possibly from ancient Mesopotamia. They were known also to other cultures, to the Indian astrology as well. Um, they are, especially the talismans, are created in auspicious time when the planets need to be really respected, highly dignified. So um, this is really very fine work, and according to Agrippa, he calls this the finest art of astrology. And he also says, together with many other ancient sages which practice astrological magic, they say that you cannot practice magic without having the knowledge of the stars of astrology. Actually, many may argue with me, but I will tell you that since antiquity, since the first origins or the golden era of astrology, it is known that the sky and our life are connected in such way that first one event is occurring in heaven, and after that it manifests um, on our reality. So this makes perfect sense. So what Cornelius Agrippa is saying is magic is natural. This is the finest art of astrology, which requires knowledge of natural sciences and um, celestial sciences. Ficino, also great medieval Italian um, astrological magi and physician, says that the natural philosophy and cosmology are united, and there you create the magic. Plotinus says the same, that natural magic actually is realized through this connection between natural sciences and cosmic. He calls it sympathy between the two. So the natural sciences is what? It is about stones, plants, having knowledge and information about them and how they can, in the most appropriate planetary time, how they can receive the powers of the planetary spirits in order to serve us, to serve our needs. Magic is so ancient and related to astrology since the first illumination of Hermes that I spoke about in some previous videos, that um, it was part not only of the everyday life, but it was part of the medicine, because the medicine in Mesopotamia was practiced in many different ways. I will talk about this in another video on medical astrology. So the medicine was practiced, one of the ways the medicine was practiced was through astrological magic, and this was melothesia in particular. So what we know about the magic in Mesopotamia, that the uh, Mesopotamian divination was related to observation. This would say that everything that they would observe happening on the sky, later on, they would search evidence whether this will produce certain events for the king or for the person individually. So this is also how they used to link divination with magic, and how would they observe the results, and they would report this in their diaries, well-known diaries, which some of them are translated from Akkadian, from scientists. Basically, to come back to the question, why magic words? Well, the Hermetic philosophy underlies this doctrine of magic, the astral magic, because what is it about? Actually, we know that first we have the spiritual forms, which arise spiritually, the one that remain invisible to most of us. Then we have the celestial patterns of stars and planets, and then it comes the material world, and then there is this harmony between them, and this is how it all originates. So everything manifests in spiritual form, but before that it appears, of course, um, um, after that it appears in celestial form, and then finally in the material world. Now, even nowadays, scientists agree that via the laws of the quantum mechanics, that the spirits, the matter, can be in many places at the same time. And this is so important to remember, because when you astrological magic, and when you invoke the planetary spirit, you need to know that it's not impossible this spirit really to come and serve your needs and charge your talisman, because this particular spirit can be simultaneously on many different places. So uh, even it can take millions of years apart, and still this um, matter, these spirits can be connected without having any physical contact. Also, you know that there are many different dimensions, and all these dimensions are, of course, having different existing divinities and spirits. So we come now to the Hermetic law, which is like a base, which is the basic of the astrologic, of the ancient astrology, but also of the astral magic. What is it about? In Corpus Hermeticum, we know this scheme, which is called Schema Mundi. Actually, this is a very simple scheme. It's very simple um, model of the universe, which explains why the astral magic works, and why the magic, in order to work, need to be astral, need to be related to the planets and the stars. Now, what is actually this schema mundi meaning in Corpus Hermeticum? Is it's like you have the planetary spheres, very simple. And the model, actually, I explained this in previous video, but it's applicable to explain it, to repeat it here again. So the model is such that you have um, the Earth, then you have the planetary spheres, uh, in the planetary order, the way we know them. So you have the Earth from our perspective. Otherwise, Hermes was heliocentric, so the Earth was not supposed to be in the middle. But since model is built from our perspective, so you have the Earth, then you have the planetary sphere of the Moon, then you have the planetary sphere of Mercury, then Venus follows, then the Sun follows, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And then you have, of course, the zodiacal belt of the fixed stars and the zodiacal constellations. And then it comes the most interesting, but before that I can tell you that why the schema mundi is the base for astrology and the astromagic is because the idea is that all these celestial spheres are ruled by divinity of a very high hierarchy. So we know that every simple planet is having divinity to be ruling the planet, and this is all mentioned, and it's base of the knowledge of the ancient Mesopotamian astrology and mythology. So we have the sphere of the zodiac and the sphere of the fixed stars, and then you have the decanates. So what we know about the decanates, this is particularly important because we have the decanates and there are 36 astrologically. Probably you know what is decanate, what are the decanates. These are not the decades known to the modern astrology. These are the decanates, and these are 36 overseers, ruler of the time, and they are responsible for the creation of the stars. And these 36 rulers of time, they divide each astrological sign into three equal parts, and each one of these rulers is ruling the time for the period that the ruler is rising on the horizon, on the eastern horizon, and this would be about around 40 minutes. So this is the model of the universe, and these overseers are creating the stars, the fixed stars. They are of a very high hierarchy, and these are divinities which can be invoked, which can participate in the creation of the astrological talisman. And all these divinities, the ruler of the planets, the ruler of the fixed stars, can be invoked, and they are being invoked. And this is how, depending on the qualities, on the knowledge of the astrological magi, depending on the planetary moment, on how good your planetary election is, you can really invite them, make them part of the astrological talisman, and this will work. So you have these 36 overseers, and then finally you have the eternity, you have God. They're like a boundary to God. So what we do, we invoke them, we follow procedure, very strict procedure, very knowledgeable procedure, a fine art of astrology, and then we invoke these spirits and we incorporate them, we attract them, we make them part of the talisman image, which can be different. More often and workable is to use, when we will invite a certain planetary divinity, we use the stone which belongs to this planet. We use the metal which the planet likes. We use the um, particular scents, aromas. We use, of course, we gather the right herbs which pertain to this planet, and resin we burn, and it's really a very specific and very realistic, actually, procedure which is supposed to invite the planetary spirit. And the fact is that doesn't matter whether the person believes or not, talisman works. It is same like with the black magic. The black magic is done, unfortunately, to destroy the life of someone. And even though the person doesn't know, the black magic works, because this is just the opposite of making the talismans. It is harmful event which, without your knowledge or with your knowledge, works against you. The same is with the talisman. It can be made for you, can be placed in a distance from you, and it will work. So you will hear that talismans work because you project belief. No, talismans will work anyway. Depends on the quality and the knowledge and the artistic and the astrological talents of the astrological magi. Why it works again? I know from the experience of contemporary astrological magis that, for example, when you create astrological talisman, the divinity which is like linked to the talisman will be with you, will help you, will serve you, and you feel when this talisman doesn't work, in many cases, the astrological gemstone will break. And I know such cases when the astrological gemstone, which was the shape, the image that was um, taking part in the creation of the talisman, when it breaks, it is known that this talisman doesn't work. I will tell you another example. I have also from my particular experience a case when I created astrological talisman for a person who unfortunately was seriously ill. And the moment after I completed the talismanic work, and the moment after I closed the ritual space, the talisman fell, slipped from my hands and broke into pieces. So I understood that this is not only a bad omen, but this is saying that in this case, the spirit is not would not agree to come, would not agree to protect this person. So it was a very unfortunate event, but to tell you that there are some miracles, bad or good, which happen around the creation of talisman, and which means that this is a real creation, a real event. Think also about the queens and the kings and their crowns. Why they are so obsessed with this um, rich crowns with gemstones, all natural, all huge, because all this is being consecrated. All this is being was made on appropriate astrological time from experienced astrologers. Look how they keep their power. Look how long they live. It is all because of the knowledge of the secret astrological magic that they have. Now, think also about one very interesting example of the Bulgarian master being Sadunu. Since in the creation of the talismans, the most powerful are the words, it's the invocation of the spirits. It is not only the astrological timing, but it is also how you invoke the spirits. So you invoke the spirits, and it is a magic of words actually. So the master being Sadunu is saying, write on a piece of paper with your own handwriting the Psalm 91 of the David Psalms, and write also one famous prayer called the Good Prayer, and nothing bad will happen to you. Then, during I think it was the Second World War, he invited the soldiers to do this and keep the prayers in their bags. What happened? Those soldiers that really did this came back from war unharmed because of the power of words, because this particular paper work was actually talismanic work, and it really worked as protection. I have many other examples. And then you have the way you invoke dreams. You invoke dreams with your words, and the dreams come. This is again the power of dreams. And then you have these planetary petitions, which prove only how powerful the spiritual world and the divinities we invite are, depending again on our knowledge. So, what is this? We choose particular planetary moment, and then we invoke certain planetary spirit in order to ask for help, or in order to simply to communicate with. So this is called petition, and it works because usually after that you will receive all kinds of proofs, dreams, or interesting events will happen after this. So a wrong elected time for creation of talisman can also be a problem, and I had such issue with the ring which I created, and such a ring due to wrong election which I made in the past brought me bad dreams. So I understood my mistake, and I immediately fixed the situation. So this is about the power of the evocation, which is the power of words, which is part of the astrological magic. You have the election, the right planetary moment, you have the ritual, you have the herbs, you have the stones, you have the metals, and then it comes the moment of the invocation, the incantation. Here I will give you the example of the very ancient texts called of Mesopotamia, of Babylon, called Mukwu. So this is a text which is coming from around 1,000 years before Christ, and there you have these great rituals, consecration. It is a complete scheme of rituals of how you fight black magic. Amazing, logically ordered, knowledgeably ordered, and all this just perfectly works. Known from ancient Mesopotamia, even the jewelry, the precious gemstones were used for this purpose, for talismanic or apotropic, meaning amulets. So this was really the knowledge of the ancients. And coming back to the magic in Mesopotamia and these incantations, which are so much used, we have the Epic of Gilgamesh. When we hear about all the time about astrology and magic, we have the illumination of Hermes Trismegistus, where he is given the knowledge not only of astrology but also about magic. I talk about this in the original origins of astrology video, but this is just to remind you. We have the uh, tables, the cuneiform tablets from Uruk, also about magic. And as I said, the Melothesia, which was the knowledge of medicine and magic. Of course, the medicine was practiced on different levels, but magic was involved. The knowledge of the stars, the knowledge of which particular star is having healing properties, and this all is worked. Then, very interesting for the essence of Babylonian magic is the divinity, which actually is Ea, the god of both wisdom and cunning and magic. See how interestingly they relate the god of magic and wisdom, because magic is really related to wisdom and knowledge. There are many ways the astrological magic, the astro magic, was practiced in ancient Babylon. You would read about exorcism. You would read about these incantations that would exist in almost in every magical practice. Of the way they would chase demons, of the way they heal sick with magic, of the way they handle witchcraft, and this is all mentioned in Mukwu, where they specifically say on this particular month, on this particular day, do this incantation, and so on. So basically, this was about why the astral magic talismans work. It is because a very knowledgeable um, work of invocation of the planetary spirits is behind the creation of the astrological talisman. And because there are specific rules that you really cannot be very flexible with. So this particular knowledge and of natural sciences, of celestial sciences, is behind the creation of the astrological talismans. And if you want to learn this, you can certainly study my 6 hours webinar on the website of astroada.com. Thank you very much. I'm Krasia Tasio, Sidereal Astrologer.